Hello my friends, welcome in this new video where I will be explaining my setup and configuration for the Beier SFR-1-D ESC, actually double ESC sound and light unit with my bulldozer. So I'm redoing the video right now to explain to you the system, the configuration on the computer and everything, but I started this video a couple weeks ago actually, and there's a French version available for the French-speaking persons. Get some coffee because it's going to be a long video. Be ready for some kind of deep explanation. I'll try my best to make it as simple as possible, as easy as possible, but this is quite advanced, I would say, sound and light unit, double ESC sound and light unit. So you will need a computer, you will need a Windows-based computer in order to set up the configuration for the SFR-1-D. You will need a radio, so I'm using a FrSky Tandem XE radio, wonderful radio with the ETHOS system. And I'm going to showcase the bulldozer from Bernie 222 RC on Curse 3D. It's a D6XE. First of all, I'm going to showcase the model by itself, focusing on the light and sound and the double ESC system. It's a V-PAT bulldozer, so the blade has 6 angles. So first of all, let me start the engine. And I don't know if you can notice with the sound, but I can lower and raise the volume from the radio. So if you look carefully, when I start the model, these lights comes alive with a slight flickering, and also these lights over here. So I'm using a special mode, my special mode for the AC roof. So you get some more lights, man. There's plenty of lights in this bulldozer. First of all, there is the bottom bright lights, then the top bright lights. It's really bright in the dark. So let me just switch it off for now for the demonstration. You also have the special 3 orange light blinking system. Okay, with the one on the back as well. And you also, let me show you, get all kinds of lights on the back. You get the bright lights, okay. You also have the side lights, okay. And like I said, the rear lights, they are automatic when you start the engine of the bulldozer. So for this model, there is also other functions, like there is a fan, okay, automatic fan. As soon, let me just stop this. As soon as you start the model, there's a fan going on, okay, and this is a special feature of the Beier SFR-1-D. I'll show you, because I can use different speed for the fan depending on the speed of the model, for example, or the configuration. I'll show you later. What else? I think we got it. And now I'm going to showcase the blade system. So of course, up and down. You also can swing it. And you can also tilt it. So it's pretty nice. I mean, there's a video on my channel that you can check with all the different functions and with the model playing in the dirt. Even though it can push dirt, but it's more like for grading. Of course, there's the track system. So myself, I'm using a 3-speed drive system on my radio. So this is, I'm going to show you the first speed. I don't know if you can notice it, but there is some slight inertia. I'm going to show you the second speed. Full forward. Full reverse. And now the third speed. Full forward. And full reverse. So I don't know if you can hear it, but when I'm moving backwards in reverse mode, there's like the beep, you know, the warning system. Yeah, I think that's about it. Like I said, the fan, the V-pad blade, all the sounds, the light unit. Now I think we're gonna dive into the SFR-1-D configuration. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the core functionality of this Beier SFR-1-D. First of all, like I said, it's a 3-in-1 module. It's a double ESC sound and light unit. It's going to be a double ESC. That means you can have 2 tracks, like 2 motors, for example. The other interesting part is it's like a 16 output channels system, which means you can have up to 16 lights outputs, for example, or it could be other outputs. And the double ESC is up to 30 amps. It's for brushed motor, by the way. So on top of the double ESC, you also can control up to 3 servos, actually 4 servos, sorry, outputs, and 2 additional mini speed controller that you will see I'm going to use for this bulldozer. Also, the supply voltage goes from 6 to 18 volts. So up to I think 4S battery. I'm using a 3S battery, a LiPo system in my bulldozer. The audio amplifier is 20 watts, which is pretty powerful. I'm using like a 10 watts in this bulldozer, but it's like plenty enough already. And the dimension is pretty small though. It's 80 by 60 by 25 millimeters. As you can see when I'm going to show you all the wiring. Get some coffee, I told you. So I'm going to show you how I've been connecting everything. It's very easy to break down, remove the hood, get a battery. So I'm using this battery. I have about like more than 1 hour of running time. So you unplug the battery. I'm using also FL-VSS, something like that. It's a LiPo sensor, just to have all the telemetry and on my radio. All right, and now I'm going to unscrew these 4 screws. So here's the inside. So this is the SFR-1-D. This is the main module. This is the speaker. So I created a box. This is a 40 millimeter speaker. I have the electric input over here. And then from there, you can see probably I have like the BEC. It's a BEC unit over here. I need a BEC, especially for the lights. Some of the lights, like, you know, these lights, for example, these lights, and there's like 6 of them. They only works in 6 volts. So I had to use the BEC. Below the BEC is the X8R, the receiver, FrSky receiver, and below the receiver, it's a tight fit. It's all cramped together. It's ESC. It's a double ESC from King, whatever the name is. Now this is the one I'm using for both the lifting arms and the swing arms, and for the tilt and the ripper, I'm using like the SFR-1-D. There's like 2 input that you can use. Now I'm going to do a sketch. I'm going to show you exactly how everything is plugged. And then we're going to move to the radio control and the software programmation. So as you can see in this diagram, I've decomposed the plugging and the wiring into 2 different things. In orange, you get what I call the servo cable plugs. Basically, it's very easy and very simple because I'm using the S.BUS function on the SFR-1-D program and on my radio, which means that I'm able to simulate up to 16 servo channels, even though I'm using a 8-channel receiver. So what you can see is I'm using X8R receiver. I'm using, of course, the SFR-1-D as an ESC sound and light unit. Am I also using a ESC for the ripper and the blade tilt? So if you look on my X8R, I have 1 cable that goes from the S.BUS out to the SFR-1-D X2/8, which is the servo plug for the S.BUS. On the X8R, I got the channel 1, sorry, That goes to the X2-1 on the SFR-1-D. It's for the left track. And for the channel 2 on the X8R, I'm going to the X2-2 on the SFR-1-D, which is the right track. And now I'm using the channel 3, sorry, channel 4 to go from the X8R to the double ESC that commands the Reaper and the blade tilt. I mean, as far as cables, several cables, I don't have much going on the model. That saves space and it's not that of a mess. The fact that we can use the S.BUS is very convenient because we can simulate, like I said, up to 16 channels with no actual servo cables connection between the receiver and the ESCs, for example. Now, if we look at the electrical wiring, we can see that it's not that deep either. For example, if you look at how the motors, the double ESC, the fan, the LED, the 12-volt LEDs are connected, they are all connected to the SFR-1-D unit, which is very convenient. So if we look at the details, we can see that both motors for the track, motor 1 and motor 2, they are connected to motor 1 and motor 2 on the SFR-1-D. I'm also using the motor 3 and motor 4 function on the SFR-1-D to connect the double ESC that connects to the Reaper and to the blade tilt. And for the fan, I'm using the what they call the smoker system on the SFR-1-D that is connected to the fan directly. And for all the lights, which are called outputs on the SFR-1-D system, all the 12-volt LED are connected directly to the external plug of the SFR-1-D. So all the negatives goes to the pin from 1 to 8, and the positives goes to pin 9 and 10. Later on in the Sound Teacher software, you can assign every of the negative outputs to a special light function. And for the 6 volts LED, it's the same principle. You connect all the negatives to the pin number 1 to 8 on the SFR-1-D output, but you connect the positive to the BEC because you need 6 volts maximum. So that wraps up the servo cable and the electrical wiring. If you have any question, please use the comment section below, or better, you can go to my Facebook page and ask question over there because it's actually more convenient to answer questions on Facebook. So in order to configure and to set up the model with the SFR-1-D, you need a Windows-based computer. So I'm going to use like a very old Windows computer that I have. So when you're going to start the software, there is nothing, okay? Everything's blank. There is no sound, no additional sound. The configuration is blank and everything. So I just loaded my configuration. So if you go into engine sound, this is where I get the sound. And please notice that you get the sound, so it's like engine cold sound, cold start sound, warm start sound. Okay, you just download the sound or you have a USB key. For this particular model, I'm using like a Caterpillar track loader sound. One of the third thing you should notice is like you have like over there, you have a volume, overall volume control sound, which is very, very useful. Because for example, if you look over here, I got 15. This is for the reverse warning sound, and you know it's very loud by default, so you have to lower it. For example, I lowered it to 15%. This is the main sound, like the cold start, warm start, the reverse sound, the engine stop sound, etc. This is in this section. You can have a second sound, a second engine sound. So this is some misunderstanding to avoid. When they are saying engine sound 2, it's not going to be 2 tracks because basically it's one motor that moves 2 tracks, right? Like a second engine sound is, for example, if you have like in an excavator, you have the sound of the hydraulic system, but you also have the sound of the turret swing, okay? This would be the case. This is how I've been setting the sound system with my Caterpillar 330F excavator, for example. So this is a completely separate sound from the engine sound number 1. You got what they call additional sounds. So very important, because this is where you have all the horns, for example, the hydraulic sound. If you're using like a truck, some stuff like that, this kind of vehicle, you can have like the press, the hair press, you know, the sound. So all of the sounds are going into the additional sound section. You can also have a random sound. So for this particular model, I'm not using any random sound myself, but in my trucks, for example, I like to have some kind of random sound with some hair press, hair system, you know, hair breathing system and stuff like that. I think it's kind of nice because the models is really alive like this. You can also add some music or any kind of wave sound. So you have a wave player. I don't use it myself. So as far as sound, this is where you're going to use every sound. So for example, if you want to have like a warm start sound, you have to open the folder and you look into your different folders, okay, and you have all kind of sound over here, like, okay, and you pick up one. Let's say you pick up this one. You can sound preview as well, okay, and you just click open, for example. One of the very neat features of this system is you can use S.BUS or I.BUS depending on your radio system. And let me explain what S.BUS is. First of all, your radio and your receiver have to be compatible with the S.BUS system. If it's the case, man, it's a game changer, I would say, because you basically what it says is that you need only one cable that goes from the receiver to the SFR-1-D system, and with this you can simulate up to 16 channels. Once you activate the S.BUS system on your receiver and on the sound teacher, you can have only one cable that goes from the receiver to the SFR-1-D system, and it's going to be able to simulate up to 16 channels. So you have to activate it, okay? You activate it over here with one cable that goes from your receiver S.BUS to the S.BUS input on the SFR-1-D, which is on the X2-8 placement on the system, on the unit. You have up to 16 channels. It's almost like it's some kind of virtual channels, okay? So, for example, in my radio, I have only an 8 channels receiver, but I'm able to simulate up to 16. So myself, just to make it simple, I'm using like prop 1 is going to be a channel 1, prop 2, channel 2, etc., etc. But you can, I mean, it's not necessary. You can have like a prop 5 is going to be a channel 1 or whatever. It just, for me, it's easier to understand, because the output on my radio is going to be exactly the channels we're going to assign over here. Now we're going to dive into the configuration of this system. So the general tab is very important, of course. First of all, you can choose what is going to be the starting function of the engine, of the model. In my case, I'm using what they call the engine sound on and off in order to activate the sound. So you can choose a startup function under the general tab, okay? So I'm using the engine sound and off function as a startup. You can have like an overall volume. I would advise that when you are configuring for the first time the model, you lower it to like 30%, because it can be pretty loud, and at the very beginning, usually you don't have the volume on the knobs. It's not set up. So you can start with like 30%. You add what they call a reduced engine sound volume, because with a special function on the radio, you can reduce your sound to 30%. Like if you want to talk to someone, or if you want to have like a lower the sound volume like pretty quickly. And one of the good things about this system is you can use like a knob on your radio to adjust the volume. So for example, in my case, it's going to be what they call the prop. I'm going to show you later what a prop is. Basically, it's a channel. There is up to 16 channels available with this SFR-1-D module. Also, they have what they call a dynamic engine sound volume. So let me explain. It's just like when your model is stationary, it's not moving, the volume is going to be reduced by 20%, okay? and as soon as you start any of the function, it goes to a full volume. It's kind of useful, like for example, if you're at an event or at a fair or something, when your model is not moving, it's good to have like the sound not so loud, because like there's usually plenty of models, so everybody is like, every model is very loud, so you can use this function over here. I think it's pretty neat. Also, you can set your battery voltage monitoring over there, which means if your battery goes below a certain level, it's going to first stop the sound volume, and then it can stop the model completely. So for example, I'm using a LiPo 3S battery, so I've been set up my levels that if my battery goes below 11.1 volts for like 240 seconds, is going to stop you see it's written over there, at under voltage turns is going to stop the sound off first of all, and then when it's under 11 volts for like 60 seconds, is going to turn all outputs. So it's going to turn all the lights, like some of the motors, etc. Now, very interesting and very original to this Beier SFR-1-D system, you can have multifunction. So for this system, I'm using a multifunction that I call hydraulic action, and it's going to be every time I'm using a hydraulic command, like any of the blades or the ripper, the engine sound RPM is going to change. So the engine sound RPM change is going to be featured in the next tab, but let me show you. I don't know if you could hear it, but every time I'm removing like a hydraulic function, the engine RPM sound change, it is lowered by like, I think 10 or 15%. We're gonna see that in the next tab. This is a pretty neat feature, the multifunction. So now we're gonna move to the next tab, which is the speed controller tab. So keep in mind, you can plug up to 4 motors with this unit. Motor 1 and 2 are the main ones. This is the one that I'm using for the driving system. So left track is motor 1, right track is motor 2. But you can also have motor 3 and motor 4. And motor 3, like I showed you in the diagram, motor 3 is going to be for the teeth blade, and the motor 4 is going to be for the ripper system. So basically it's ESCs. You know, it's smaller ESCs than the motor 1 and motor 2, but still it's pretty valuable. So if you go to motor 1 and 2, you get all the mixing function. And let me tell you something. It's kind of weird, but I'm not using the inboard mixing from the SFR-1-D. I'm going to use my own mixing with the radio system, because I would like to adjust the mixing of the tracks depending on each of the different speeds I've been configured in my radio. So this is why I'm using my own system. But trust me, I've been trying every of the dual mixer. It works well. It works perfectly well. Actually, let me show you something. So if you look at this diagram, it's going to explain to you, especially like the fine-tuning your control mixer mode parameters. You can see that for the dual mixer number 1, there is a 1-to-1 mixing ratio, okay? It allows you to have some kind of sharp turns. Okay? It's pretty stiff, I would say. Not stiff, but it's really nervous. I think it's too nervous for my taste. I would recommend that you use either the dual mixer 2 or the dual mixer 3. Actually, the way I configured my radio, it's more like I'm using the dual mixer number 3 equivalent for the Beier system. I think it's really neat. The 1 to 0.5 ratio is really nice because you can have some smooth turns, you know. The dual mixer 4 is very special because it's going to be, when you turn, it's going to be only one track is moving. One track stops and the other one moves, okay? So it can, the good thing is you can do some pretty stiff and very nervous turning, steering movements, but I don't think it's very accurate and very realistic for our models over here. Like I said, the number 3 for me was the best when I was trying it. Very smooth, but accurate as well. You also have some kind of differential with throttle curves. And this is more like for, let's say you have like a truck and you want to simulate the locking differential, you know. So you can use this system to simulate like a differential. It's pretty neat. This is probably one of the things I want to try with one of my truck. Also, you can have channel reversion. Let's say you don't have access to the actual wiring anymore. You can just reverse the motor over here. This is what I did on my system. The more I can do with my radio, I do it on my radio myself. But you can simulate inertia and load regulation with this system. And it's pretty neat. I've been trying it. So first of all, you have to think that you have to set up the inertia, but you also have to set up load regulation. If you set up some inertia, but there is no load regulation, it's not going to work. You won't see the effect of it. So for this kind of dozer, I was using the inertia on medium. And I would also recommend that you use the emergency stop possible, because you will see you will try, but the inertia was pretty heavy. So you better have like some kind of way to just stop the inertia, but just by bringing the stick on the back position, for example. And the more load regulation, the more the truck or the dozer or your model will feel on the stick. It's pretty neat, very interesting. You also have like what they call a handbrake function. So with a tracked model, we're not going to use it, but it's going to be useful for I think for trucks, for example. So now let's move on to the Motor 3 and Motor 4 ESC parameters. First of all, you can label it. It's very neat because on the configuration tabs later on, you will see that you can see what we are talking about. I'm using 100% because, you know, I'm using it's actuators. So they are not that quick, first of all. And I need all the power and all the speed of it. And now you can assign what a prop channel, which is like a channel basically. What we can have now is that we can set up some different parameters for the engine sounds, just for the sounds of the engine. Okay, so first of all, remember, we can have up to 2 engine sounds. But for this model, even though we have 2 tracks, but there's only 1 motor that moves the 2 tracks, so we're gonna only use the engine sound 1, okay? So for example, I'm going to have my engine sounds going to be from M1 and M2. And I don't want any average. I just want to have both motors available. This is the default. I'm using the default, works pretty good for me. Fast switching is very important because it allows you to, as soon as you let go the throttle, for example, it's going to, accurately, the sound is going to decrease and stop. You can have some threshold for some brake noise, corner squeak, etc. This is all by default for me. One of the features you can have with the system is you're also able to have the sound that goes on and off with a movement of the throttle. If you don't want to have any switch to start and stop your engine, you can use this function. So it's going to tell you that it's going to turn on the sound on automatically by the throttle, and after 10 seconds in stationary, it's going to stop the throttle sound. You can set a feature that the driving is only possible when the engine sound is on, which would be accurate actually. I'm not doing it myself because sometimes I want to be able to move my models even without the sound turned on. Another feature over here is cancel starting sound when accelerating, which means that if you start your engine sound, for example, and you're already moving, it's not going to go with the startup procedure. It's going to go straight to do accelerating sound. Here you can set up the time for the warm starts. So remember, you can set up a cold start and a warm start. So basically, with 180 seconds, you're saying that if your model has been stopped for more than 3 minutes, when you're going to start the engine again, it's going to use the cold start sound instead of the warm start sound. Oh, and remember I told you that when I'm using one of the hydraulic function, the overall engine sound RPM goes down by 10%. Okay, this is 10%. Very interesting feature. I'm also using this for my excavator just to simulate, you know, the braking force and the strain on the hydraulic system. You can set, if you have multiple gears models, you can set all the gears over here. Of course, I'm not going to use it with my model. So now we're going to move to random sounds. I told you I'm not using any random sounds with this model, but I think it's a pretty neat feature because you can use some sounds and it makes the vehicle, I would say, pretty much alive. I kind of love this function. So we're going to check all the S.BUS and the proportional channels just in a minute. I'm going to move to the outputs. The outputs basically are your light system, or you will see in this case the fan system, for example. All the wiring that goes from the LEDs, they goes to the terminal, the clamp terminal, right? I show you the picture in the diagram. Okay, they are all plugged in from 1 to 7 in my case. Okay, you can have some special features. For example, the daytime running light, which are the lights that's going to start as soon as I start the engine. You get an option over there. The option 1 is like you can have the brightness of these lights to go below a certain level when the parking light or the low beam is on. Myself, I'm not using this feature. I want my lights to be like as bright as possible, even though the parking light or the low beam height is on. And same for when the indicators are on, I want my daytime running light to be as bright as possible. And as you can see, I have the daytime running light in 2 different positions, in output number 1 and also output number 6. That's because when I start my model, I have the front lights that starts, and also I have some of the back lights that starts automatically as soon as I switch on the engine sound. We're going to check the output options. This is the core of the output system. First of all, you can tell if you want some light flickering when you're starting the engine. Okay, I've set mine to medium. You can use on some of the lights some kind of what they call the bulb effect. I'm using light for this one, for this model. Plenty of configuration possible, plenty of setup. Brake light always on at stationary. You want to have like for example on a truck, you're using your brake light, but when your model is stationary, after 5 seconds, the brake light goes away. If you have set up some emergency brake lights, you can set it up over here too. You can set up a threshold for the brake light and a threshold for the emergency braking light over here. You can have your other lights to automatically be on when you reverse. I think for trucks it's a very nice feature. You can set it to switch off after a certain amount of flashes. While you're turning, you can have like your automatic light to start. So the American mode, I don't know exactly what it is. I guess my American friends, you know what it is talking about. I mean, you can always check the manual. It's fully explained. The manual is very well done. It's in English, by the way. And it's very nice, but I don't remember what the American mode is. You can set a threshold for like indicators when you're steering. You have multiple parameters for the bending light system if you're using it, like on a truck, for example. You can tell that your daytime running light, instead of being switched on automatically when you start your engine, you can start it with a switch as well. So since I'm using daytime running light, I want to have my daytime running light only switch on when the engine sound is on, okay? So I cannot switch my, my front lights over here and my daytime running lights on the back like without the engines turned on. You can tell that your reversing light and reversing warning only on when driving, not when stationary. It's a nice feature. You can have what they call the xenon HYD effect. You know, it's a kind of when you start a light, it's going to pop up and then slowly increase. Parking light and low beam headlight always on when engine sound is on. This is a pretty neat feature. It's not working over there, but you can tell your truck, for example, that as soon as you start, the motor is going to start your position light. I think it's nice. And in my case, I'm using what they call the smoke generator for my fan, okay? I've been cheating with the system. So in my case, the smoke is going to be replaced by fan. Fan at engine start and acceleration. I've set it up to 90% actually. That means that when I'm accelerating or I start the engine, it's going to go straight to 90%. When I'm standing, it's going to be blowing at only 70% of the full speed. And when I'm moving at full speed of the bulldozer, it's going to blow by 100%. And you can also have like what they call a training generator fan, which means that the fan is going to blow like for 10 seconds after you stopped your smoke generator. In my radio, I've been set up a special setup, which means I can override this system with one switch. So I can, let's say it's very hot and my dozer is standing, it's switched off. So it's going to tell that the fan is off, but I want to be able to override this system, and with a switch I can have this fan blows 100%. You can have like what they call light switch. It's different steps. It's some kind of a combination of different lights. And you can also have what they call output sequences. Output sequences is what I'm using with the special strobe light, warning light on this model. It's very special to the CAT dozer D6 XE. So this is where you simulate this kind of special warning lights. You have to configure the duration and the output value from 100%, but it could be like 19. You can have some like flashing lights, some bright lights, some slow on lights, some stuff like that. What is important in my case is I'm using like a 32 steps. Even though I said I'm using 32 steps, in fact I'm using only 16 steps. It starts step 1 and it loops up to step 16. And when I switch off the switch, it stops immediately, okay? And this output sequence is going to apply to the output number 3. And if we go to output number 3, you can see that it's the reversing light, okay? So pretty neat feature. You can do a lot of different things, like very special police strobe effect, or like you know, for like the fire truck and stuff like that. You can basically do what you want with the output sequences. So you can also have what they call like servo sequences. It's more like, I would say, maybe more for like fire trucks or like tanks, you know, like if you want to have like a gun moving a certain way for a second, so you activate with just one switch, you have like a sequence of servo outputs. For this bulldozer, I'm not going to use the servo outputs, neither the function sequences. So we're going to move now to the proper configuration of the channels and how I've been set it up with my radio control, the FrSky Tandem XE. So I'm going to show you now the way I've been set it up, the configuration from the SFR-1-D to my radio control. So each prop over here is a channel. And let's say, for example, for this model, I'm using channel 1 and channel 2 are dedicated to the left track and the right track, which means if you go prop 1 and prop 2, and if you go over there in prop 1 and prop 2, you don't see it, okay? Because it's reserved. It's reserved by the system. This is what they're going to use in order to simulate the sound of the tracks, the way it speeds up, it slows down and everything. So for my case, the channel 1 and 2, even though I'm using it for my radio, but it's not, I cannot configure it in the SFR-1-D sound teacher. But the prop 1 is going to be the left track, and if I show you quickly, if you go under the output over here, so if you look in under the configuration, the output configuration, you see that the left track is going to, the channel 1 is going to be my left track, and the channel 2 is going to be my right track, okay? So for every of the prop channel over here is going to go to a channel on output channel on my radio. So if we go to prop channel 5, for example, prop channel 5, we can see over here, channel 5 is going to be, it says it's not available because it's used for motor output M3 or M4. And if we look at my radio and I go to the output 5, I can tell it's going to be used by the blade tilt, okay? And channel 6 is the reaper, okay? So remember, channel 6, remember under the speed controller, we said that channel 6 is going to be the reaper. Well, actually it's all reversed, okay? But you get the idea. the channel 6 is the Reaper, and the channel 5 is the tilt blade, but you get the idea. If we go back to the S.BUS, and we know channel 5 and channel 6 are used. 3 and 4 are not used by the SFR-1-D because that's the channel that are used by the blade swing and the blade tilt. These are controlled by a ESC, by a separate ESC, okay? The configuration for each prop channels has multiple options. For example, for the channel 7, it's going to be an output. It's going to be a low beam headlight and a front fog light, okay? So first of all, let me show you what this means on the model. So the low beam headlight is this one, okay? I don't know if you can see it, okay? And what they call a front fog light is the one on the up position, okay? So front fog, low beam headlight, okay? The way the FrSky radio works, it means that the one on top is actually when you switch the button on the switch on the back. This is the low beam, and this is the front fog headlight, okay? This is the way it works on this system. So first of all, let me show you the different position you can have on your SFR-1-D sound teacher. So in my case, I want to be able to switch on the light with a short in position switch, you know, clack clack. But you can also use in position, which means when your switch is going to be in the up position, for example, so up position is going to be over here, you have an output. Or for example, you can use it to mute sound. So when I'm going to apply a switch in a certain position, it's going to mute the sound completely. Okay, it could also be, for example, for what they call horn. Okay, when it's in position, it's going to blow a horn. Okay, you can also have the fan. I don't know where it is. Yeah, well, this is what they call smoke generator. But what I'm using is when I have like one switch, this switch in the down position is going to, let me show you on the radio maybe. So when the switch is in the up position, the fan is forced. So it's very interesting because it gives you many different features with one switch. You can have like the in position, the short in position, but you can also have the long in position, which means if you stay long, you can have like one output, okay? And it's very interesting. You can reverse channels. For example, I've been reversing channel 15. I want to have the fan, even though the fan is in this block over here, is going to be activated when the switch is in the up position. So this was channel 7. For channel 8, I'm also using some kind of light combination. So for every prop channels, you can just apply different outputs. So for example, like I said, the mute completely. This is like, for example, this one is when I start the engine sound, okay? So this is going to be this switch, okay? But if I start it and I leave it in the down position, it stops the sound. It mutes the sound completely, okay? This is because this is what's written over here. A short in position is going to be a stop and start sound, but as soon as I leave it in the down position, it's going to mute the sound completely. So one of the features I was telling you is like the multifunction. Remember, multifunction is when there's a sound RPM change when I'm using any of the hydraulic movements. And there's a special trick over here. I don't know if you can see, but multifunction is going to work as soon as it's in position. And I'm going to show you how to translate it to the radio just later on. Okay, so that means that as soon as I move away from the neutral range, which is the green one, okay, I don't know if you can see, but see, the green one is the neutral range, okay? The yellow one goes to this switch, to this position, sorry, and kind of, I don't know, man, red or pink or whatever is for the position A, okay? But for this multifunction, the sound RPM change, I want to have the sound RPM change to be active as soon as I move the stick a little bit. So this is how it goes with the software. Now I'm going to show you how it's been set up in my radio. So now we're going to see how you have to set up your radio with a ETHOS system with this radio, which, like I said, is a Tandem ETHOS from FrSky. So first of all, there is some kind of basic screen setup. I'm not going to go deep on this in this video. I made a couple videos about it, the Lua scripts and stuff like that, that you can find on my channel if you want to have a look. What I want to show you is this. First of all, I want to show you that what I always do first is I label my outputs. And the outputs are the way the servo cables are physically, but in this case we're using S.BUS, so it's kind of different, but this is the way it's plugged in to my receiver. And there's a direct connection between the channel number over here and the prop channel that is set up on the S.BUS system on the SFR-1-D. And for now, we're going to focus just on the outputs, not the mixing part. I'm going to show you the mixing part with the different speed I'm using, etc. in just after the outputs. Like I said, I like to have all my outputs labeled and just to make sure that everything is in place over there. So the channel 1 and channel 2 are for the tracks. And the only special thing I'm using is I'm using like a dead zone over here. So beside the dead zone, which I'm basically using on almost every of the stick movements, nothing fancy over here. Right track is this channel 2. Remember we said that the swing and the lift of the blade are controlled by a SE, a separate ESC that is not the SFR-1-D. The SFR-1-D controls the tilt, okay, and the repair as well. Now I got some lights. For channel 7, remember, it's one of the light systems. So I'm just naming it lights, okay. Like I said, nothing fancy. It's cool to name it because as you will see when you go to the mixing part, is going to make it very simple and very clear for you. Channel 11, remember, I call it hydraulic. It's the multifunction, which is the hydraulic with the sound RPM change. This is some more lights over here. We got the horns. The horns are kind of special, but you will see in the mixing because the horn you have to press and okay. So this is the horn for the channel like 13. There's the fan on the channel 15, and this is the volume control on the channel 16, okay? I want to be able to control the speed, the forward speed, but especially the reverse speed. And like I said, I have 3 different speed setup, and for each speed, I have a special forward speed and a special reverse speed. So let me show you. And I'm using custom curves for this. So, all right, so the slow speed curve is very interesting because the slow speed is mostly forward speed, okay? And if you look carefully, so first of all, it's a custom curve. It's a 5-point curve. I'm going to show you the detail of it. Okay, oops. We can go to the details. You can see that the maximum reverse speed is like 85%, and the maximum forward speed is like 65, which means that the model is going way slower in the forward speed than in reverse speed. And this is, for me, it's useful because it allows me to kind of mimic the real behavior of the bulldozer. And you'll see, I mean, each curve get the medium speed curves. If we go to the medium speed curves, we can see that it's going to be 80% forward speed and minus, 90% reverse speed. And the fast speed is like 100% and 100%, okay? Let me show you what I did also. I have a special curve which I'll call boost, and I'm using with the actuators. This is also a curve you can use with hydraulic movement. So the boost is useful for the actuators, for example. As you can see, I don't know if you can see over here, but the fact that close to the center, there's like a kind of a boost in the movement of the stick. It makes the movement of the blade very responsive, for example. What else? I showed you that I'm using like a dead zone on every of the outputs that are with a stick. That allows me, let's say, from -3 to +3. I could say, I'm going to use -5, for example. Okay. That means that a slight movement on the stick, see, is not going to have any impact on the driving, on the system. I also need a positive and a negative curves. This is for the horns. I'll show you in the mixing position, but just keep in mind, and this is like, it's not a custom curve, it's what they call a function curve. And this function is, I call it positive. It's like as soon as x is superior at 0, and negative is the reverse, okay? And as a side note, remember, and there's a video about it on my channel already, but I'm using these 4 switches. I'm using them to switch from one model to the other, like with the movement of a switch. So this is some special functions. I'm not able to use any of these 4 switches. So like I said, I got 3 speeds, 3 simulated speeds. For these speeds, I'm using what they call flight modes. So if you go to flight modes, I have the default one. I have what they call the slow speed, and let me show you what it is. It's slow speed. It's active under the condition of FS4. FS4 is this one, FS5, FS6, okay? And for every of my change of speed, like my flight modes, I have like a fade in, fade out of 0.3 seconds, okay? Okay, so you keep in mind that I'm using flight modes to simulate different speeds. So we're going back to the mixes, and you see, this is the speed number 1, and as soon as I press button, the speed number 2, this is active, okay? And now, this is going to be active. Like, let's say we're gonna be in speed number 1. I give it a name. In this case, the condition is always on, okay? The source is the left joystick y-axis with the throttle, okay? And now, what you do, first of all, what you do is you apply outputs. So for the throttle, you apply 2 outputs, the left track and the right track, okay? So you choose channel count 2, and you apply the left track and the left track and the right track. Now here's a special. I'm using, as an action, I'm using a slow speed, okay? This is slow speed. And I'm also using a slow up, slow down, okay? This is for me to simulate the inertia of the model. So on the speed, the slower speed, I'm using a 0.6 second on slow up and slow down. So with the slow up and slow down, you can simulate different behavior, different inertia behavior when you're talking about tracks or like a throttle or motors, engine motors for trucks and everything. It's a really neat feature. Depending on the speed I'm in, I want to have like a different behavior with the track, with the mixing of the track, okay? Let me show you. For the flight mode 1, which is the slow speed, I'm using 50% weight on the direction. This is the way I'm able to set up the mixing of the tracks with the radio, okay? And when I'm in the flight mode 2 and 3, which is the medium and the fast speed, I'm using a 30% mixing for the tracks. All right, now let's go to, I'm going to show you, for example, one of these. They all basically hold the same, they're all set up the same way, okay? This is the lift, okay? This is this one. This is the lift. So first of all, it's available in all flight modes. I mean, the flight mode I'm using. The source is the right joystick on the y-axis. Okay, you can pick it up over there. And now I have like the weight is 100%. I have, you can see over here, I have the boost curves applied. Okay, it allows me to have a very responsive blade movement. Okay, the output, of course, is for the lift. Okay, but then I'm using a second output. I'm using the channel 11. Remember, it's the channel that I'm using in order to simulate the sound RPM change. Okay, and this is where you set up this different of sound. Okay, for every mix that is using a hydraulic, what I call a blade movement, or like a Reaper movement, like for example for the Reaper, you can see that over here, you can see that I have the channel 4, but channel 11. Channel 11 is the multifunction. So for the lift, the tilt, the swing, and the Reaper, I'm using the channel 11, which is going to simulate the sound RPM change. For the front lights, very easy. Front light, it's a channel 7. Remember, channel 7, output channel 7. And I decide that the source is going to be this S1 button. S1 button is this one, okay? This is the one that controls both bright front lights. Nothing fancy over here, no curve, nothing, okay? This is the rear lights, is going to be with the channel 8, and the source is going to be S4. S4 is this one. What else? I can show you, for example, the fan, or the, let's say, the starter. The engine sound and off is going to be S12, okay? S12 on channel 9. S12 is this switch, okay? And channel 9 on my output is the engine start, is the prop channel 9 on the SFR system, okay? So yeah, it's very, very basic. I got both horns, so the horns are going to be used with this stop button over here. So this is where the positive and the negative curves are useful. So you're saying that this is the horn. The source is going to be the top right, okay? The weight is 100%, but it's going to be a positive curve only, okay? And the output is channel 10, the horn. But remember, I have another horn on channel 13, I guess. It's going to be the top left button over here, and it's going to apply to channel 13, which is prop channel 13 on the SFR-1-D program, okay? I got the volume control with this button. I mean this knob actually, okay? So with this knob, I can set the volume of the sound. All right. And then the fan is the last one. The fan is pretty easy too, nothing fancy. It's going to be, the source is going to be S5. So S5 is this switch over here. And the source is going to be the channel 15. So I guess you get the idea. For each prop channel, I assign an output on my radio. And then when I'm going to use and set up my mixing part of it, I apply a source, which is going to be like a switch or like a joystick or a knob or something. And then there's a source, and the source is the output. It's not really complicated with the ETHOS system to set up a bulldozer. It's a very simple model. It's not like you don't need any hydraulic pump. I mean, at least with this model, with this bulldozer, you don't have any hydraulic pump or like any real tweaking. I will probably do a separate video of how I've been set up my excavator with the hydraulic system, which is like much more different. And it takes a lot of more time to set it up because of the hydraulic pump, hydraulic system, and the way you want every of the cylinders to behave. So once again, thank you very much, Beier Modelbo, for providing me with this wonderful piece of equipment. It's by far the most advanced, the more accurate, and it's been fantastic with this truck vehicle. I would highly recommend, even though it's pretty expensive. This is top of the line sound, light, and ESC system. And if you consider that you have like a double ESC plus a sound and light unit for this price, well, I think it's well worth the money. All right, so I think this wraps up this video. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, I would suggest that you go to my Facebook page, because it's easier to reply and then to add some images if needed, because if you ask some questions in the comment section of the YouTube video, even though you can do it, I will try my best to reply, but it's not as convenient. So please give the thumbs up, consider subscribing to the channel, and if you want to help me grow my channel, please share the video. See you soon.